Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Today we are wrestling with a piece of ancient literature that, honestly, speaks so directly to the modern condition. We're looking at excerpts from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and really, for anyone who feels stressed, burned out, or just constantly trying to optimize their life, I think this deep dive is for you.
It really is. This text is, it's the source material for arguably the most famous poem about time ever written, and it offers this incredible framework for understanding life's chaos. It argues that life isn't random, it's seasonal, and that structure is both profound and really comforting.
Absolutely. Our source material today is basically an ancient masterclass in dealing with the things we just can't change.
Exactly.
So our mission is pretty clear. We want to extract the essential lessons on God's sovereignty over time, unlock the meaning behind that fascinating idea of eternity in the human heart, and then connect this, nearly 3,000-year-old wisdom directly to our modern anxieties.
And to that constant draining chase for what the text calls the illusion of total control.
Yes.
It all really starts with its core premise. You could say it's the thesis statement for the entire chapter. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven.
And that's the foundation we're building on today.
That's it.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole idea of seasons. The poetic list that follows that opening line is just... It's exhaustive. It's almost overwhelming in its scope, isn't it?
It is. The writer isn't just giving us a few examples of life's variety.
No, it feels much bigger than that. It feels like they're trying to box in the entire human experience with these perfect opposites. A time to be born and a time to die.
A time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to weep, a time to laugh.
Exactly. And what's interesting is how the source material treats these experiences. It doesn't seem to label birth as good and death as bad or laughter is better than weeping.
No, not at all. They're presented as two sides of the same necessary coin. They're just inherent parts of life under the sun, as the author says.
So this huge list of contrasts, it serves a purpose.
A very profound purpose. It's demonstrating that all these life events, the joyous ones and the devastating ones, are under a sovereign and controlling hand.
It's a really powerful and humbling statement, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We do not control the timing of these seasons.
We don't.
We can plant a garden, sure, but we can't mandate the harvest date. We can prepare for a loss, but we can't really prevent that moment of mourning.
And that realization, if you can fully embrace it, it fundamentally changes how you approach stress.
How so?
Well, when you realize that the timing of these great life shifts is governed by a higher schedule, it just strips away that crushing burden of trying to micromanage your whole existence.
Right. That's the tension. We're called to work and to plant, but we still have to surrender the outcome and the timing.
Exactly.
But I think a listener might ask, doesn't saying God's timing is perfect sometimes feel a bit like a spiritual platitude? Something that lets us ignore real suffering or delay taking action.
That is the essential complexity this chapter forces us to confront. It's a great point. The text is not advocating for passivity. Okay? It's advocating for perspective. We are commanded to work, to plant, to build, but the text assures us that the ultimate outcome, the final beauty of the cycle, it's not dependent on our flawless execution.
It depends on the divine weaver. So we contribute our little thread, but we don't control the tapestry's final design or when the last stitch is pulled.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the text goes even further. It makes this incredibly powerful claim about the quality of that divine schedule.
Which is?
It says that God makes everything beautiful in its time.
In its time.
Yeah. Which means that what seems chaotic or even senseless to us right now is actually intended to produce a specific, necessary beauty later on.
But that is so hard to accept when you're in the middle of a painful season. Our perspective is so limited to the here and now.
Of course.
We're in the time to mourn, and we just can't possibly see how a time to dance could ever come from it.
And that limitation is exactly why trust is the necessary response. The source material is basically saying the difficulty you experience in this moment is intended to be beautiful when you see it from God's complete, comprehensive timeline.
Okay.
Think about the examples the text points to, this whole process of preparation.
Give us a concrete example of that from the source material. We need something a little less abstract than just perfect timing.
Okay, well, consider the pruning that hurts today but produces fruit tomorrow.
Right.
Or the years of waiting that frustrate us now but are actually preparing us for what's ahead. Look at the story of Joseph.
years in a prison cell after being betrayed.
Exactly. That entire agonizing chapter of his life was the necessary prerequisite, the time to be bound, that prepared him to manage a famine and save entire nations.
So the immediate pain served an eternal, overarching purpose.
It did. And David, too. He spent years fleeing from Saul, living in caves. Those were years of intense vulnerability and preparation. They shaped him into the kind of king who could actually lead Israel.
That really reframes the struggle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It shifts suffering from feeling like some cosmic accident to being a necessary, divinely orchestrated prerequisite for whatever the next season is.
That's it.
So the challenge then becomes trying to discern whether the difficulty you're in is a season of necessary waiting or if it's a call to immediate action.
And that discernment is part of the deep work of faith, because often the most transformative seasons feel the most unbearable while we're in them.
We are terrible judges of our own preparation time.
We really are. This framework forces us to stop asking, why am I suffering? And to start asking, what character is this season building in me?
That's a powerful framework for our external life, the seasons we move through. But what about our internal world?
Oh, yes.
And that brings us to a concept the text introduces that feels so surprisingly modern, almost psychological. The author writes that God has also set eternity in the hearts of men.
This is the aha moment of the text, I think. It's the source of our deepest, most profound restlessness.
What do you mean?
This awareness of eternity, this deep down knowledge that there's something more, that's the text's explanation for why temporal things never fully satisfy us.
So money, fame, success, even our best earthly relationship.
They're all good things, but they can't fill that void.
So the implication is that we're wired for infinity, but we're living in a finite existence.
Precisely. And so earthly pleasures aren't meant to fully satisfy. They're meant to act as signposts, pointing us toward that eternal God for whom we were made.
That internal setting for eternity, then, it means we're constantly feeling this friction with the clock and the calendar.
We are. We try to maximize every minute, but we're always left wanting more time, more significance, more permanence.
The pursuit of transient happiness is exhausting.
It's exhausting because the mechanism inside us, that deep sense of eternity, it just rejects things that are transient.
And that leads directly to the core problem of human comprehension. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think.
It does.
The text says that while we know God is at work, ordering these seasons and writing eternity on our hearts, yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end.
And this is the crucial moment where the text defines our limitations. We have this eternal longing, but we are explicitly prevented from grasping the divine plan that would fulfill that longing.
So our inability to comprehend the whole plan isn't a flaw in our design.
Not at all. The source suggests it's a necessary reminder of our creatureliness.
Can you elaborate on that term? What does creatureliness practically mean for someone listening?
It means we're finite, we're dependent, and we are inherently limited in our perspective. Think of it like this. We can see one small, highly detailed thread, maybe two, right in front of us in our life.
Okay.
But God sees the entire tapestry from the moment the loom was set up to the final thread woven in. He understands the purpose of every single knot and every color change.
We experience a few moments. God sees all of history at once. So if we can't fathom the plan, the required response isn't to demand complete clarity or to, try and force an understanding.
The required response is humility and trust.
Humility, because we have to accept our limitations.
Yeah.
Our creatureliness.
Right. And trust, because we have to believe the weaver is fundamentally good and that the completed tapestry will, in fact, be beautiful, even if the thread right in front of us seems dark or broken.
That structure of divine timing leads perfectly into our next segment. It shifts the focus from our fleeting lives to the longevity of divine action. So if we're finite and the plan is infinite, what does the text tell us about the ultimate significance of our efforts? The author says, I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it and nothing taken from it.
This statement forces us to completely reevaluate how we invest our limited time and energy. Think about the legacy of human achievement. The massive monuments, the groundbreaking innovations.
They all eventually fade or crumble or become obsolete.
They do. But the source material suggests that aligning our transient human work with God's eternal purposes is the only way to give that work what it calls eternal weight.
So if we just pursue our own agendas, focused only on immediate gratification or wealth or temporal power,
The source says that work is ultimately ephemeral. It fades like grass. It lacks any lasting, enduring significance beyond our brief moment in time.
So that's the challenge it poses. It's urging us to revere him, to live in awe of his eternal nature, and to guide our use of time, money, and energy by asking a pretty dramatic question. What am I doing right now that will truly matter in eternity?
And that question alone is such a radical shift from the typical metrics of productivity and success that our culture promotes.
Right. But the author of this text, he wasn't blind to the realities of the world.
Not at all.
In the following verses, the text turns pretty sharply to a much darker yet very real observation, the prevalence of injustice. It specifically notes that wickedness exists even in courts of justice.
This is a crucial element of the text's credibility. It doesn't offer flowery, sentimental ideas. It looks unflinchingly at the painful realities of life under the sun.
It sees the righteous suffering and the wicked getting away with it, at least for a time.
Right. It sees that sometimes the time for justice is tragically delayed.
And this is the point where I think the listener might feel the most friction. If we're supposed to trust in divine timing, but we see injustice everywhere, how do we reconcile those two things without just falling into cynicism or bitterness?
The conclusion the text offers is an ultimate promise. God will ultimately judge both the righteous and the wicked because there is a time for every activity.
So justice might be painfully delayed.
Yeah.
It might not arrive on our timeline.
But it is certain, and that certainty should be the source of our patience and confidence when we face ongoing injustice. It removes the pressure of needing to see all the scales balanced immediately.
But does the text then advise us to just stop working against injustice? To just rely on that future divine accounting?
No, and that's a key point. The text provides a practical balance that's essential for our mental health. It tells us to work against injustice where we can, to exercise our responsibilities in the season of building and planting, but also to consciously and actively leave ultimate justice in God's hands.
That sounds like a critical spiritual psychological strategy.
And it is. It frees you from the crippling burden of trying to fix everything that is broken in the world. And it prevents that corrosive bitterness that consumes a person when they see evil temporarily go unpunished.
That brings us perfectly to our final segment, connecting all this ancient wisdom directly to the massive stressors of contemporary life.
Right.
I mean, our modern culture runs on this ideology of relentless self-optimization. We have apps and strategies and techniques for every minute of the day.
Trying to engineer perfect health, schedule success, quantify every variable.
Yes, it is the very definition of the illusion of control.
It absolutely is, and that illusion is directly challenged by Ecclesiastes 3. We're told we can be the master of our destiny, that we can control our timelines.
But the text forcefully reminds us that we are not in control. God is.
Right.
Now, for many people, hearing you're not in control sounds, well, it sounds terrifying. It sounds like giving up. Yet the source material suggests this surrender is actually the best news we can hear. Why is that?
It's the best news because it frees us from the impossible burden that is the source of our culture's epidemic of anxiety.
The pressure to control every variable.
To optimize every outcome, to ensure that the time to weep never comes. It's literally unmanageable.
That's exhausting.
It is. So when we stop trying to force outcomes, when we accept that God sovereignly orders our seasons, we can finally experience rest. We can move from the anxious posture of managing time to the peaceful posture of receiving it.
So let's make this really actionable for the listener. Yeah. What are the core practical takeaways from this deep dive that they can apply today?
I think we have 3 clear applications that really address the anxiety caused by trying to master time.
Okay, first, accept seasons with grace.
Don't resist the season you're actually in. If you're in a season of planting, don't expect to reap a full harvest tomorrow.
Right. And if you are in a time of mourning or, say, a professional struggle, don't force yourself to appear joyful just for social media.
Exactly. The authenticity of embracing the current season, the good and the bad, is key. Ask what wisdom or character God wants to teach you through the necessary difficulty of this time.
Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is trust over comprehension.
Embrace mystery. You just don't need to understand every single step of the plan. Trying to trace God's hand when you can't is a recipe for frustration.
So faith means trusting his character, his goodness, even when his ways are completely beyond your comprehension.
Remember the tapestry analogy. Stop trying to figure out the whole design when you can only see one thread. Surrender that need for immediate clarity.
And finally, find contentment in the present.
Yeah. While you maintain that crucial eternal perspective, knowing this world isn't our final home, the text also explicitly tells us to find joy in today's work, today's meals, and today's relationships.
God gives these current tangible gifts to us to be enjoyed.
They are meant to be enjoyed. Don't be so hyper-focused on optimizing the future or so fixated on the past that you miss the unique blessings and the specific lessons that are embedded in this present moment. Every season, even the hard ones, holds unique gifts. Receive them gratefully.
So what does this all mean? Our deep dive into Ecclesiastes 3 really reveals that the path to true, lasting peace comes not from successfully managing every variable on your calendar.
Which is impossible anyway.
Right. It comes from trusting God's perfect eternal timing and accepting the gate of the present season, even amidst life's inevitable contrasts and contradictions. It frees us from the terrible anxiety of being our own sovereign.
And to leave you with a final provocative thought to carry forward from this deep dive. In what area of your life, maybe it's your career timeline, your relational status, or your personal goals, are you currently trying to fiercely control the outcome or the timing, rather than surrendering that timeline and just resting in the knowledge that someone else who sees the whole tapestry is holding the schedule?
And on that note, we encourage you to continue exploring, learning, and diving deep into stories that inspire and challenge you. Until next time.